Howdy, everybody. This is Lady Arian Rudd. It's been a night of technical difficulties, so I'm going to try and keep this short so I can get it done before anything else goes wrong. Hey, tonight I want to talk about the fact that so often, on one hand, people say, hey, I don't want to indoctrinate my child. I want to give them options. I want them to hear about other religions, and I want to give them the opportunity to make the choice, which is something I didn't get to do. And on the other hand, we get, usually by the same people, comments like, I took my child to a family member, or I took them to their daycare, and they came home and told me that we're going to hell because we don't believe in Jesus. And that bugs me. Number one, if you're really serious about your kids learning about lots of different religions, then they're going to have to learn about Christianity, even if you don't want them to learn about Christianity. It's the major religion here, and it's the thing most people are going to know and are going to talk about. It is part and parcel of American culture. And I know it's easy for people to say, oh, just find a new daycare, or find a new caregiver, or whatever. It's not actually that easy for a lot of us. There isn't a lot of childcare options that are affordable. And frequently, the most affordable option is either a Christian daycare or a family member. But if you're going to put your kid in a situation like that, then you need to be prepared for that. And you need to be teaching them other options and other ideas too, right? You got to have something to offset that. So, the other thing to consider and keep in mind is that for most of us who came from Christianity to a pagan faith, we think about our childhood and our experiences that way in terms of how we were told that this is the only right way to be. You have to keep in mind that that is Christianity in a nutshell. There is no other way for them to be. It is hard for most Christians to tell you anything about their religion without turning it into a sales pitch, because that's exactly the way it's taught. When you start out with the idea that there's only one God, your options for explaining everything about religion are pretty limited to there's only one God and you have to do it my way. Most pagan faiths are polytheistic or pantheistic, and neither one of those really lends itself well to that same sort of sales pitchiness, because we all understand that there are many ways to look at the world. So if you're teaching your child those sorts of things, if you're teaching from a pagan perspective, it's really hard to teach them paganism in a way that makes it as obnoxious as Christianity was for many of us as children, right? It's hard to brainwash somebody into believing into multiple gods. It's easy to say there's only one right way and just do it this way, and to get everybody on board with believing that. So, for what it's worth, your kids are going to learn about Christianity anyway. Most of the people, the vast majority of people in the United States, are at least nominally Christian. Most of them go to church once in a while, at least for big holidays. So unless you live in a really, really diverse neighborhood, your kids are going to be exposed to Christianity, whether you want it or not. So you need to plan for it. You need to set ground rules with family members who might overstep the boundaries that you would otherwise want to put in place in terms of what they can say and in terms of what gifts they can give. When we had nursing coverage here at home, we had a nurse who insisted on bringing a book of Christmas stories for one of my children. And we didn't care too much about it because stories are stories, myths are myths, right? But she was then adamant that people needed to read those stories to that child. And frankly, it's not where I'm at. We're not reading those sorts of things to our kids right now. We're reading myths and legends and fairy tales and that sort of thing instead. when they're bigger and we can have a rational discussion about it, we'll read some of those things, right? But right now, that's not where we're at. And it certainly wasn't where we were at when he was a year or two old. So, in summary, this week's lesson: teach your kids about what you're doing. Teach them about your faith. Because if you don't, other people are going to stuff other things in their brains without leaving room for this sort of open-mindedness and pluralities that you're already thinking you want your child to learn. They are going to hear those things from people, and unless they have something from you that gives them some other ideas on what to do about it, then you are out of luck, because it'll already be in there and they will already be brainwashed, which is just the thing you didn't want them to be. That's all for this evening, and I will talk to you soon.